Hello, I'm Sumit Bose, founder of Future Net Zero. We are a website that produces content to help you cut your carbon footprint. And the Net Hero podcast is all about that, highlighting people doing amazing things to cut emissions, be that scientists, business people, inventors, or just common, ordinary people who are doing something to make a change. If you want to get involved, then email us. And we're looking for a sponsor for this amazing podcast. So if you'd like to know more, get in touch. On to this week's episode. If you've been listening to the podcast, you know we love technology. We did a recent one about fusion. And one of the things that's been knocking about, and a bit like fusion, gets a very bad rap, is the idea of carbon capture. Now, the disastrous COP, and I'll call it disastrous, kind of fell away because of one reason that I think people still don't get. A lot of nations still have fossil fuels and they want to use them to get themselves back up to the levels of lifestyle that we're used to here in the West. Now, we all know they're bad, but is there a way around it that involves using carbon capture technologies to make that sort of gap so that we're reducing the amount of emissions, but we're still allowing countries to do it? Lots of schools of thought on that. Some people say that shouldn't be done at all. Others actually argue that carbon capture is pointless. It costs too much, it uses too much energy, and it is a fallacy. Well, what's the truth about it? The British company that we're going to talk today on the podcast has been looking at doing this, and not just doing it in a way that is good in terms of cost, efficiency, and the environment, but also gives a spin-off material that can be used in other products. So I'm delighted to say I'm joined by the CEO of Levidian, and that is John Hartley. Hello, John.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Now, explain what Levidian, is that right? Not Leviathan.
Levidian, you're close.
Levidian.
Yeah.
I think I'll keep with Levidian. I think that sounded quite good. What does Levidian do?
So we're an industrial decarbonisation service provider. So we work with big industry, and we do three things for them. We capture the carbon from the gas flow, methane primarily, and we then run it through our loop system. We make hydrogen out the back end, and the carbon we capture in a form called graphene. And graphene is a wonder material you can add to things to decarbonize them further. So those are really the three services we offer: carbon capture, on-site hydrogen, and the graphene is as the solid carbon.
Well, let's talk about those things, and then we'll talk about kind of the sectors. So I'm a big fan of carbon capture. I've worked with people. I know the people in DESNES, what was BES, who are working on this. You've seen the government has made a priority of investing it. Why do you think carbon capture is criticised so much? Scientists criticise it. A lot of environmental groups hate it. They think it's a license to pollute. So before we go into what you're doing, why do you think that is there? Because there is a lot of, I wouldn't call it just kind of unhappiness with it. I think there's quite a lot of, quite vociferous negativity towards it, isn't there?
Yeah, that's true. I think that's a shame. I think the key is often carbon capture utilization and storage, or CCUS. The unheralded bit is the U piece. So, and how you utilize the carbon. Very often you hear about carbon capture as pumping carbon dioxide into the sea.
Yeah.
Feels very wasteful, it's very expensive, and you don't know exactly what's going to happen to that in the future. How do you account for it being permanently sequestered? So there's a real importance, I think, of saying you've got carbon molecules in methane that have real value. What do we use them for? Let's use those carbon molecules to lock them away to decarbonize other products. So I think there's an over focus on the capture of the carbon, not enough on the utilization, and that's why the perception has been negative, because it sounds inefficient and sounds like an uncontrolled way of moving the carbon dioxide problem somewhere else. Basically,
it's a bit. So some, one environmental person, I quite respect them, but they said to me, "It's sweeping. You're sweeping the crap under the carpet, because all you're doing is you're allowing people to still use and burn fossil fuels, and then you just hide it away." I think that's a little bit unfair, but that's a perception, isn't it? That like you've said, you just take it and you go, well, there's an old, oil well that's dried up. We just shove it in there.
Yeah, I think actually our industry is too ready to criticize itself often, and what we need is a what we
I'm
need.
glad it does. Otherwise, I'd have nothing to talk about.
I think what we need is all of these things to work,
Yeah.
and clearly for the scale of the problem. So I'm not down on. I think the need to capture carbon at scale makes some sense if we can do it efficiently, but it does seem a shame to take methane, get it out of the
Yeah.
ground, burn it to create carbon dioxide, and then tuck the carbon dioxide away somewhere else. Now, clearly, partly I'm biased because we pull the carbon out of the methane before it's burned. So we say, look, don't create the carbon dioxide in the first place. Take the methane, pull the carbon out in solid form, put that carbon in the form of graphene into something different. And so you're utilizing it. You're not creating a problem to then sweep under the carpet, to use your analogy.
What about the cost element? Again, some people I like the idea, but just say it's just a bit like the argument for fusion. It's just not worth it. The infrastructure cost, the ability to grab the carbon, even the energy use in repurposing it, even what you're doing. How do you answer critics who talk about this is just, financially it's not it doesn't make sense and it relies on massive subsidies if it's going to go anywhere?
Yeah, so let me talk about our perception first and then the industry as a whole. So we don't need a subsidy for our economics to work. We've sold 10 units in the past 12 months to a range of industries, and the economics work as you stack up the carbon capture value. That tends to be the smallest bit, honestly, the kind of pounds per ton
Yeah.
of CO2 abated, the hydrogen that you're making, and the graphene value that you get. And when you look at those three things, you can get a payback of 3 years if you buy the kit. So it can be very quick. So I think the days of saying you need a big subsidy for us certainly are over. I think for the much bigger projects,
Yeah.
then you don't have that revenue stack potential. You're all on the kind of carbon credit piece, and you need massive infrastructure investment. So either you need the government to do what they're doing and to say, this is going to work, we're going to be world leaders, so we'll invest in our own ecosystem and then we'll then export it. But you need some kind of catalyst to get over that cost hump. As I said, it's not a problem we have. We don't need
Yeah.
government subsidies for doing what we're doing. But for the broader industry, they've got to drive their costs down, I think.
So in a way, don't take it the wrong way, it's sort of carbon capture light, right? It's designed for businesses. This is not like huge plants that the government's
Yeah.
looking at in huge kind of industrial areas. You're talking about something that actually can it be tagged onto a business? How does it work? Is it like a battery type thing or a plant or how do you
Yeah,
do
no, that's a good summary. So we're looking at on-site solutions for industry. So if you're let's say you're a big landfill site or a
it? Yeah,
wastewater treatment site, or you're a big factory with a gas burning engine, we put our what we call our loop system, it's a containerized bit of kit, and you dock it onto the site. So you transport it on a truck, connect it up to the gas flow, give it some electricity, and it gets up and running. So
so
that's
this
the
box,
first.
how big is it for listeners and viewers to get an idea in their head?
Smallest one is a 20-foot shipping container, so
Okay.
standard ISO 20 foot. The biggest one we built so far is up in Manchester. That's a 40-foot container, but they're a bit like an industrial scale battery. They're
Right.
modular, so you can line them up next to each other and have much bigger units. But it's roughly about that kind of size. But your broader point of we're focused on the industrial bit of the value
Yes.
chain. We're not focused on grid scale. We're not looking at
No, I get that.
CCGT plants and how do you
And I think that's an interesting thing because I know that one of your clients, if we can mention it, I think you put it out there, people might know. Party on, Glastonbury. Um,
yeah.
that's an interesting one because obviously young people are at the forefront of the whole kind of climate debate. And I mean, personally, I'm going to put it out there, can't stand Coldplay. I like their first album, but after that, they're awful. But they've made a lot of money and a lot of credence by saying they're going to be as green as possible. There's adverts out there. Glastonbury is a place that's been doing, and we've covered it for years, things to try and improve the carbon footprint of the massive festival there.
Yeah.
What are you doing there? What have you done to help them? Because I think might give our audience an idea of the sort of things that can be done.
Yeah, they've been real innovators. So they had in place a capture plant. So they got all of their cow waste goes down a big pipe into an anaerobic digester.
Yeah.
That then feeds gas into a CHP plant that gives power and heat to them and to the local village. So they found a way of decarb or helping create value and energy from that cow slurry. What we've done is stick
Are you
our
sure it's not? It's not. It's just cow, and not the festival goers
I'm
as well.
I'm pretty sure it's just the cows, not the festival goers. Yeah. So we put our loop system between the anaerobic digester and the CHP unit. So you get
Right.
methane out of that AD plant. We strip the carbon out of that methane, feed
Yeah.
hydrogen into the CHP plant that's then burnt with a lower carbon footprint. So and we then take the graphene away and we find another customer to buy the graphene. So Worthy Farm get the carbon benefit, they get the
Yeah.
hydrogen instead of the methane, and they've been real innovators, I think, as you said, throughout their history of things like
Yeah. They
solar
have.
panels for the first time and things like that. So that's a good example of how you can take an existing gas consuming asset like a CHP unit. It's not ready for pure hydrogen yet, and we can give it some hydrogen alongside the methane to lower its carbon footprint without the customer, Worthy Farm in this instance,
Yeah.
get a completely new bit of equipment. But yeah, that's the summary.
I've always looked at certain things in science that's out there around the energy sector, and graphene is, or graphene, as however you want to say it, is one of those things I've always thought, has a lot of potential. So if people kind of don't know what it is, it's a type of carbon, a bit like diamond or graphite, but it was, I think, invented at the Manchester University a few years ago, and it's brilliant at conducting. You can use it in the tires in my bicycle, makes it last longer. People are putting it in clothes. So it's got this thing. This byproduct that you're making, the graphene, um, is that something that you guys keep and that's part of the deal with your clients? Or is it something the client can have as well? Because I suppose it's kind of a product that they could make money out of, but I don't know how
Yeah, good
you run it
question. So we
commercially.
we do both. So if you take a water company, for example,
Yeah,
they've got waste gas, they're going to use the loop system. They use so much concrete and cement, we can then put the graphene into that and they
to
can
strengthen
embed
it.
into
Yeah,
that. So we're working with United Utilities. They've got to get to net zero by, I think it's 2040, and they can't get there without decarbonising their concrete and cement. So in that example, they're using the graphene themselves to create
yeah.
value. In other examples, like a landfill site, they've got
Mm.
loads of gas, but they've got no need for the graphene. So in that case, we'll take it away and we'll then find another customer for it and we'll subsidize the landfill project with that graphene value that we're creating. So we can do both. As you said, graphene, really exciting nanomaterial, much hyped. It does everything.
Yeah, exactly. It's been hyped a lot and it's not really out there because again, the cost of making it. So in a way, what you're trying to do here is take a byproduct of trying to clean up the fossil fuel sector, really, isn't it? I suppose.
That's right. Yeah, and graphene's been held back by been too expensive. The price hasn't been right.
Yeah,
It's had batch to batch variation issues because most graphene made on the market, you mine from graphite rock and then you strip off the layers. So you get batch to batch variation because rock's got
yeah,
variations within it. And you haven't been able to make enough of it. Like if a massive customer says, I want 1 million tons next
yeah,
year,
yeah, exactly.
to be able to make it so big. Our tech and actually the DNA of our company, our origin, when we spun out of University of Cambridge was solve those graphene problems. So we managed to make it. There's no batches. It's always done from the gas phase. We've driven down the cost. We can make loads of it. We've just discovered through that process we can also capture carbon and also make hydrogen. But we started off solving that graphene problem.
That's
And
quite
now we're
interesting.
seeing the industry start to take off. So yes, growing quickly.
If you look at where this sector is, you talk about the hydrogen, and that's another one that, again, there are people out there, quite famous names, who bloody well hate this stuff, right? And don't see it. I'm a much more, I take a more agnostic view, and I think that hydrogen will have a role to play in decarbonisation, particularly of heavy industry. But again, the criticism is that you're not getting clean hydrogen. Because obviously, I mean,
Yeah.
yours would be is yours the blue or the grey? I can never understand what the
But
color is supposed to be. Green, I get, but whether it's
yeah,
grey or blue, your one,
ours doesn't
explain.
fit into the color scheme. Ours has got a lower carbon footprint than green. So when you
Right?
take waste gas, take Worthy Farm, for example,
Yeah,
that would otherwise be in the atmosphere and you're locking it into graphene. We've got a net negative carbon footprint. So it's better than green, better than net zero. But if you get the gas from a mains in a factory,
yeah,
it's not waste gas. You've got a slightly higher carbon footprint. So I think the color scheme for hydrogen was great to get people to understand the different production methods. The more interesting thing is how many grams of CO2 you're making per gram of hydrogen, and that's where we've got a really good story. So I would say ours is like a cyan blue. Blue hydrogen is from red.
yeah.
Green's got a low
You
carbon
can wear it with the right outfit at the at Worthy Farm
yeah,
for Glasgow next year.
exactly,
Um,
exactly.
on the wider thing, this is this is a nice science story, and it's a the thing that I like about it is that science has come to business, got together, and now there's a service out there for businesses. Would you say that, I don't know, I don't how long ago did you join the firm?
3.5 years.
Three and a half. Okay, so before that, it was obviously a tech spin-off, as you say.
Yeah,
One of the big criticisms is not much of this stuff is happening, right? That you guys are a rare success story. That a lot of things get done in our brilliant labs at universities all around the country, and then they never get scaled. Whereas,
yeah.
in America that happens. Did they have problems with that? And what do you think about that idea? Because that's one of the
It's a
things that's
massive
always
issue.
kind of been a problem, isn't it? We've got great brains, great scientists coming up with brilliant solutions, but they never get scaled.
I agree. I think it's a problem for the global system as a whole, but for the UK specifically. And that the
Yeah,
problem the system has is you get venture investors who are looking at early stage stuff where
yeah,
there's risk, but they take a big chunk of the equity of the company. And then you get asset financiers who are willing to say, oh, when you've got solar panels completely proven out, we'll give
yeah,
you
exactly.
build 1 million of them. But for that bit in the middle, the valley of death, as it's often called, where you've got tech that's out of the lab, it works, but you haven't got 100 contracts from massive customers.
Yeah,
No one's looking to fund it. And that has gotten a lot worse in the last 2 years. So that kind of funding was much easier to come by 2 or 3 years ago. It's particularly bad in the UK. I think we're seeing, we ran an investment round 2 years ago. We got a US investor, Baker Hughes,
why
and
am I not surprised?
a UAE investor from the Middle East because they're looking to decarbonize
Yeah,
and localize content. And we're seeing those investors come into our round, but less so in the UK. I think the other problem is graphene was a UK discovery. Less than 5% of global graphene is made in the UK because other countries have gone, right, we'll
it is
commercialize it.
interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think the UK is great at spinning out university startups. We're
Yeah.
really good at funding that innovation stage, and then other people make all the money from it, is how it often feels.
What do you hope you're going to do? What's the aim for this? Do you see yourselves? I can't see yourselves being a massive scale, like doing everything. But do you see yourselves allowing, which I think is the big gap in the market, allowing, self-contained, high energy, high fossil fuel using businesses a pathway to try and reduce their footprint?
We do, yeah. I think the scale potential is massive, but it's not one or two enormous,
Yeah,
Humber type facilities. It's hundreds and thousands of sites, all with these decarbonisation units on it, keeping the carbon on site and utilising it. So if you take, I mentioned United Utilities as one customer, we've got a big unit up in Manchester. They've got 80 sites that could take this. So you can very
yeah.
quickly go from kind of one unit to 80. But exactly as you've described it, our mission is to allow that decarbonised world where companies can keep innovating, keep building
Yeah,
great,
yeah, I get it.
but just do it with a lower carbon footprint.
And that's the thing that's really the hardest part of this transition, which is how do you allow companies and businesses who are watching this to keep trading and having to use as they transition? Again, as you're part of this kind of, I suppose you're a tech business, but also, just a business.
Yeah.
That is a big issue, isn't it, for most businesses that they go, yeah, I want to decarbonize, but A, the costs are so prohibitive. B, you've got to completely change either supply chain or whatever. It's too much to handle. Are
Yeah.
things like you're doing, do you think that's a way that we can break it down instead of saying there's got to be mass things? Everyone loves to build big things. And, part of it, you worked at a big energy company in the past, part of that
Yeah.
whole thing has been building big structures to decarbonize, which is great. But this smaller element of business level ability to cut their emissions, that has been neglected.
Yeah, I agree. If you force a business to choose between decarbonisation and profitability,
Yeah, it's not going to work.
right. So I think decarbonisation will get you in the door, get you the first meeting, but unless it's a business case, no one's going to buy anything.
No, exactly.
And trying to end that false choice between decarbonisation and a business case, I think that's why we've been able to grow so quickly, because you can say, firstly, you don't have to spend 10 years and 10 billion making this happen. You can step it up. Companies talk about a net zero journey. If you can't go on that journey with them, it's really
You can't even start it. You won't bother, will you?
Exactly. And if you can say, you know what, step one has a payback and has a business case, so let's get started. I think that really helped. Yeah, that's definitely been key to us getting going quickly, I think.
Last few questions. Always one of the things that is difficult is can you make the stuff here? Because that's another thing that really annoys people. We have businesses, maybe spin-offs like your company was when it started, and then they go and manufacture abroad or China, particularly something like that. How much of this stuff are you making here? How much can it be built here? And kind of what are you doing about your own carbon footprint as well? They're the two last bits I want to cover.
Good question. Yeah, so most of our manufacturing is on site. We've got a Cambridge facility. We've now started to get assembly partners, including up in Great Yarmouth, who make these units for us as we sell more and more of them.
Yeah.
We don't want to be doing all of our work in the UK and then shipping it around the world, partly because of the carbon footprint. So we've also got a US assembly partner and a Middle East assembly partner. The idea really is that the Cambridge will be our brain, our center, new product development, most of our engineers, and then the assembly will happen in region. It is a risk that, although that's where our headquarters is, that's where our intent is, other countries have much better incentives to move operations there. So as we grow, our intent is to put it in the UK, because we're a scale up now, where if the funding pulls us somewhere else,
I get that.
So that's the first part of your question. The second part on
your carbon footprint.
Our own carbon footprint. Yeah. So we've got a team dedicated to monitoring the carbon footprint of our customers' operations and see how we help them. For our own Cambridge site, there's a plan with our next fundraising round to use the money for electrical solar panels on the roofs and for a hydrogen unit, so that when we're doing the creation of hydrogen, we can then capture that and then put it through a hydrogen boiler to power our own site. So that's our kind of key footprint, is on that Cambridge facility. The other way we have a bigger impact, honestly, is targeting sectors we can have the biggest impact in, and that tends to be where there's lots of waste gas, farms, landfill, oil and gas facilities that are flaring. That's the biggest impact we have. We're pretty small. Our own carbon footprint is going to be dwarfed by that impact we have. But still using our own kit, using the hydrogen on site, putting solar panels in there is going to help add to the EV chargers we've already got at our office, which is just a drop in the ocean, really.
Brilliant stuff. I wish you the best of luck with it. I think it's really interesting, and it's something to look out there for. Thanks for your time today, John.
Likewise. Cheers. Thank you.
Tell me what you think, audience. Carbon capture for business, in a way, and that's what they're doing at Levidian. Check it out. And I think, it's one of those things that we should look at more, is how do we help those small uni startups get to business level. If you've got a thought, get in touch on social media. If you want to be on the Net Hero podcast, then email me, nethero@futurenetzero.com. Until the next episode, goodbye.
You've just heard the Net Hero podcast from futurenetzero.com. Join us as we help you find ways to cut your carbon footprint as we head towards net zero. Subscribe and follow us on social media. futurenetzero.com. Better business, better planet.